April 9th, 1943, 27,000 feet above Lille, France. Frost feathers the inside of the canopy, the kind of delicate white lace that forms when aluminum climbs too fast into thin, bitter air. The sky up here is a hard, metallic blue, the kind of blue that makes shadows sharp and oxygen. Masks mandatory. Lieutenant Jack Mercer tightens his gloved fingers around the yoke of his P-38 Lightning and feels the machine answer, not with a lurch or a groan, but with a smooth, coiled eagerness. The twin booms stretch out on either side of him, like the arms of some predatory insect, engines humming in close, matched harmony. Below, northern France is a quilt of fields and roads, smeared by distance and haze. Above, there's only contrail and sun. And dead ahead, bandits! 12 o'clock high! The call crackles through his headset. Flat and matter of fact. That's Captain Reynolds, leader of Red Flight. Somewhere off Jack's right wing, Jack angles his head, squints. You'd miss them if you didn't know what to look for. Little dark ticks against the sky, dragging faint white scars behind them. But he's learned to see them. Focke-Wulfs. Maybe some 109 seconds, mixed in. Luftwaffe interceptors coming up fast to meet the American bombers miles behind his flight. Your heart might tighten here if you were in that seat, instead of watching from behind his shoulder. The oxygen mask smells like rubber and sweat. The headset presses your ears. Every vibration comes up through the rudder pedals into your boots. Jack nudges the throttles forward, feeling the twin Allisons respond with a deeper, throatier growl. The P-38 surges. The airspeed indicator needles past 350, chasing 400. The contrails of his squadron bend as they accelerate, long white commas, in the sky. What he doesn't feel, what he never really thinks about, is what every other fighter pilot grew up fighting. The savage twist of torque trying to yank the nose sideways when you slam the power home. In a Mustang or a Thunderbolt, full throttle at this altitude means a little wrestling. Match with physics. Engines turn propellers. Propellers bite air. Air pushes back. One direction of spin, one direction of torque roll. You learn to kick in rudder, to counter with a touch of opposite aileron, to feel your way through that moment, where the plane wants to roll out from under you. Jack just feels straight. Clean acceleration. Out on the bare metal wings, the two huge three-bladed propellers slice the air in mirrored arcs. From the cockpit, it's subtle, almost invisible. But if you were on the ground watching one of these beasts take off, you'd notice it. The left prop turns one way, the right prop the other, like a pair of broken clocks that can't agree on time, counter-rotating. Left hand and right hand. The first time Jack saw the P-38, back in California, he'd joked about it with the crew chief. Someone put the prop on backwards, Sarge. The chief. A grease-stained sergeant with a sunburned neck had just smirked. Yeah? Tell that to the guy who designed it. Says it'll save your hide one day. Right now, with a swarm of German fighters fanning out ahead, Jack is inclined to believe that nameless engineer. Red Flight. Keep 'em off the heavies, Reynolds says. Stay high, hit from the sun. No hero stuff. Jack's Lightning knifes forward through the thin air. The engines are smooth, almost eerily synchronized, their vibrations canceling each other out the way their torque does. On his instruments, the airspeed creeps ever higher. 400, 430. He feels it in his spine. That strange sensation of a big aircraft acting like something smaller. There's weight to the Lightning. You don't forget all that metal and fuel and firepower. But the controls are crisp. The nose stays where he points it. No sudden roll. No sloppy yaw. just a straight, swift dive, his eyes on the tiny dark crosses growing in his gun sight circle. The Luftwaffe formation splits. A pair of 190-seconds break left, another pair right, the rest climbing in a loose spiral to meet them. German propellers all spin the same way. Their aircraft rocks slightly as pilots pour on the power, countering torque with practiced boots and hands. Jack's plane? It just goes. He pulls the yoke gently, letting the Lightning's nose dip into a shallow diving attack. The world tilts, putting the enemy silhouettes directly ahead. The sun glances off the twin booms. The cockpit grows brighter, harsher. The airspeed indicator touches 450 miles per hour. The control forces grow heavier. But the nose doesn't try to roll, doesn't kick sideways. At this speed, in many other fighters, torque would be lying in wait, ready to punish any sudden throttle movement with a vicious roll. Here, there's only the wind's roar, growing louder, battering the canopy. You can almost feel the air thickening against the wings, the way the stick stiffens in his grip. Your breath comes fast inside the rubber mask. The German fighters are suddenly big enough to show details. Crosses on wings, the glint of canopies, the faint flash of muzzle fire. Jack squeezes the triggers. The P-38's nose guns, 4 50 cals, and a 20mm cannon clustered in that shark-like hub, erupt in a single, focused stream. No wing-mounted convergence to worry about. All that fury goes exactly where the nose is pointing. And thanks to those broken propellers, the nose is exactly where Jack wants it to be. Tracer lines reach out, bright, angry threads in the cold air. 190 flinches, skidding sideways. But it's too late. The German's wing root erupts in a burst of black and orange. Parts peel off, spinning. The fighter rolls over, trailing smoke, dropping like a stone toward the hazy earth. "Splash one," Jack hears himself say, voice oddly calm. Another 190 flashes past, close enough that he can see the pilot's goggles, hauling the Lightning into a high-speed turn that presses him into the seat. Blood drains from his head. The world narrows to the trembling crosshairs and the faint shimmer of exhaust ahead. Yet even now, with throttles still high, there's no treacherous torque trying to flip the aircraft. This, he thinks dimly through the G-forces, is what they meant in training. Stable, fast, point, and shoot. Somewhere, years and miles away from this screaming sky, a man in a quiet drawing office had stared at a blank sheet of drafting paper and imagined this moment. 2 gigantic propellers spinning opposite each other, fighting the engine's fury with mirrored motion. Letting a pilot do this at 450 miles an hour without wrestling his own machine. Up here over Lille, that idea isn't a theory anymore. It's a streak of silver metal that carves through gunfire and sunlight. A 450 miles per hour's monster, made tame enough for one man to ride. The sky is still vibrating with gunfire as Jack Mercer levels out, the Lightning slicing through the cold air like a twin-engined scalpel. But to understand how he can do this, how he can hold the nose steady through violent maneuvers at impossible speeds, I have to go back. Not to Europe, not to combat, but to a quiet drafting room in Burbank, California. It's 1937. The room smells of pencil graphite, oiled metal, and cigarette smoke. Engineers in rolled-up sleeves cluster around long drafting tables under harsh overhead lamps, and at one desk, near the window, always near the window, sits a thin, sharp-eyed man named Clarence Leonard Kelly Johnson. He's not famous yet, not the legend he'll one day become, but he is restless, brilliant, and he is staring at a problem very few people realize even exists. Torque. A single-engine fighter rolls, one way under power, always trying to twist itself out of the sky. Kelly understands the physics, but more importantly, he understands what this means for pilots. He's spoken with them, listened to them complain about the constant corrections, the fatigue, the way a sudden throttle push in the wrong moment could kill them. And now, Lockheed has given him a challenge. Design a twin-engine interceptor faster than anything in the world. He sketches for hours, the pencil whispering across the paper in quick, decisive strokes. Twin booms, central pod, heavy firepower in the nose. 2. Massive Allison engines. The layout is already radical, something no American manufacturer has seriously attempted. But the real issue hits him as he draws the first pair of propellers. 2 engines, twice the torque, twice the danger. If both propellers spin the same direction, the aircraft will twist viciously the moment a pilot adds power. Inexperienced flyers? Dead. Combat veterans? Fighting the airplane as much as the enemy. And at high speed, at the speeds Kelly is aiming for, he taps the pencil on the desk, watches the dust on his papers tremble, and then he draws 2 arrows. One curved clockwise, the other counterclockwise. Propellers that spin opposite directions, mirrors of each other. A radical solution to a lethal problem. His colleagues lean over his shoulder. Backwards props? One asks. Broken props? Another jokes. Kelly doesn't laugh. It cancels torque, he says, tapping the arrows. Perfectly. The pilot won't fight the plane. He'll fly it. He explains the concept to Lockheed leadership, the reduction of P-factor, the elimination of asymmetric thrust in climbs, the stability in high-speed dives, and someone in the room frowns. So, no torque roll at all? Not if Allison can build us a left-handed engine. This is no small request. Engines are built one way, always one way. Asking for a reversed gearbox and mirrored prop rotation is like asking the world to turn backward for a few hours. But Kelly presses hard. And eventually, the order is approved. The first prototype arrives months later, awkward and stripped down. But the moment those opposite spinning propellers bite into the air, every test pilot can feel it. Stability, smoothness, raw acceleration without the violent twist. They expect. When the Air Corps flies it, the reports come back with phrases like unprecedented control authority, no roll tendency under throttle, feels like cheating. And so, the P-38 Lightning is born. A machine whose ferocious twin engines behave like docile partners rather than warring beasts. Back over France, 6 years later, Jack Mercer banks hard to starboard as machine gun tracers streak past his canopy. The Luftwaffe pilot behind him is skilled, very skilled, and Jack feels the Lightning shudder as he pushes it into a descending corkscrew. G-forces claw at him, tightening the mask over his face. His breaths come short and sharp. In a normal fighter, this maneuver at full throttle would be suicidal. The torque alone would snap the aircraft into a death roll. But the P-38 holds firm. Its twin props, turning in opposite fury, cancel each other's violence. Jack throws a glance over his shoulder, just enough to catch the German overshooting, unable to match the dive without wrestling his own machine's torque to the edge of a stall. Jack rolls out. Levels. Feels the Lightning steady under him as if guided by a hand. On his back. Nice try, he mutters into his mask. He banks left, setting himself up for another pass. The Lightning answers instantly. No hesitation, no sideways yaw, no fight. Just power. Up here, in the cold, bright war above France, the backwards propeller design isn't quirky engineering. Trivia. It's the difference between life and death. And for Jack Mercer, it's about to matter more than ever. The Luftwaffe fighter that overshoots Jack streaks past with a flash of gray paint and black crosses, sunlight glinting sharply off the canopy. For a heartbeat, Jack sees the German pilot's profile, tight jaw, goggles reflecting sky, and then he's gone, sliding wide in a shallow, uncontrolled arc. Jack doesn't chase immediately. He can't. Not yet. Because the moment that 190 drops out of his path, something else, something worse, cuts across his left side. A second pair of Focke-Wulfs lurking above, waiting. Hunters who know exactly how to ambush a diving lightning. They dive now, wings rocking, cannons already flashing. The first burst slashes past Jack's canopy in molten orange streaks. A round clangs against the armored backplate behind his seat, jolting through the entire cockpit like a sledgehammer strike. He grits his teeth. The lightning shivers but stays true. The oxygen mask shifts against his cheek from the vibration. Red 2, break! Break now! Reynolds' voice explodes in his ears. Jack rips the yoke sideways and forward, dropping the lightning into a controlled spiral dive. The horizon becomes a spinning smear of blue and white. The altimeter needle spins backward. The G-forces slam him deep into the seat, pulling blood from his lungs, darkening the edges of his vision. But the P-38 holds together. More importantly, it stays controllable. In most fighters, this maneuver is flirting with disaster. A single propeller shoves the aircraft off-axis, twisting violently the moment airflow changes. At high speed, torque doesn't behave. You don't outfly it. You survive it. Maybe. But Jack's lightning? Counter-rotating props tame the chaos. There is no sudden corkscrew, no deadly roll snapping him out of the sky. Just pure aerodynamic pressure trying to crush him. But not the aircraft betraying him. He tightens the spiral. The twin booms cutting through the thin atmosphere with a rising, banshee-like howl. The Focke-Wulfs follow, but even from the cockpit Jack can sense their unease. Their wings wobble, their nose angles drift. The German pilots fight their own torque as much as him. This is where the lightning becomes a monster. Not when it's flying straight, not when it's diving clean, but when it's pushed to the edge of what any pilot should physically endure. Jack jams the throttles forward, the Allisons roaring so loud they drown out everything but his pulse. The airspeed indicator leaps, again, past 400, 420, 440. A lesser fighter would roll uncontrollably. The lightning barrels downward like it's on rails. Jack sees an opening, a split-second window between the two, pursuing Focke-Wulfs. He yanks the yoke back, hard. The lightning claws upward from its spiral, like a predator springing from the underbrush. Jack's breath explodes out of him. Gravity feels like it's trying to rip him straight through the seat. The wings shudder under the force, but the counter-rotating props keep the nose perfectly balanced. One of the German pilots can't follow. He tries. Oh, he tries. But torque takes him. His 190 banks too steeply, nose yawing, sideways, wings rocking. A moment later, he overshoots and nearly flips. Jack catches him in his gun sight. The world narrows to the trembling crosshairs, to breath, to trigger. He squeezes. 450s and a 20mm spit fire in a single needle-thin line of death. The rounds walk across the Der. German's fuselage, 1, 2, 3. Then the canopy bursts in a puff of glass. The 190 rolls onto its back, trailing smoke, spiraling earthward in a loose, dying tumble. Splash another, Jack mutters, voice hoarse through the mask. But there's no celebration, no time, because the second, Focke-Wulf is still there, still coming, its guns lighting up again as it closes in. Jack banks right, pushing the Lightning into another high-speed turn. His hands are steady, his breath uneven, his heart pounding. But deep beneath all that, there's something else, something steady, something cold, confidence, not in himself, though he's earned plenty of that, but in this machine, in those backwards propellers that let him do what no Mustang, no Thunderbolt, no Spitfire pilot could ever attempt at these speeds. He trusts the Lightning. And now, it's time to make the German behind him understand why. The second Focke-Wulf bears down on him like a hawk with metal feathers, closing the gap one violent burst at a time. Tracers cut the air between them in jagged orange lines. Too close, too many. Jack feels the airframe twitch as rounds pass dangerously near the left. Boom. He yanks the Lightning into a descending roll, not a smooth, graceful arc, but a brutal, slammed-over maneuver that would tear a lesser aircraft out of the sky. The P-38 groans, metal straining, rivets quivering, yet the nose stays locked where Jack wants it. Behind him, the German pilot tries to mirror the move. He shouldn't. Not at this throttle. Not at this speed. Torque punishes him instantly. His prop's rotation yanks the aircraft off course, sliding him sideways in the dive. Jack sees it in a flash, the 190's nose jerking, wing rocking, fighting a force that doesn't care how experienced he is. The Lightning's counter-rotating propellers neutralize that very monster, letting Jack fly clean while the German wrestles for his life. But even fighting the aircraft, the enemy doesn't give up. He follows anyway. Jack pulls the Lightning harder into the dive. The altimeter unwinds so fast, it becomes a blur. Frost on the canopy melts into rivulets that streak backward along the glass. The seat vibrates under him as the air stiffens into something almost solid. Below, the patchwork of French farmland swells and rises, the dial-as, world becoming sharper, more dangerous. Jack whispers through gritted teeth, "Come on. Come on." There, a thin cloud layer ahead. Wispy, weak, barely a veil, but just enough. Jack slams the throttles forward, dives into the mist, and vanishes. The cloud swallows him whole. Inside, everything becomes white, a roaring, wet, freezing tunnel. He can't see the wings, can't see the tips of the twin booms. Only the instruments glow faintly through the haze. He levels the aircraft by feel, by instinct, by trust in the design. Behind him, the German follows, but only for a second. Through the cloud, Jack sees nothing, but he hears it, an abrupt, distant roar spinning off into the void. The Focke-Wulf, disoriented, torque-twisted, emerges from the cloud bank in an uncontrolled dive. It drops past Jack's blind flank, like a stone thrown from a tower. Jack bursts out. Of the cloud a heartbeat later, sunlight erupting across the canopy in a blinding flash. He banks hard left, cleanly, smoothly, without torque dragging his tail the wrong way. Below him, the German plane flails in a desperate attempt to recover. It wobbles, overcorrects, and finally pulls up too. Late, too rough, bleeding all its speed. In seconds, Jack is behind him. The P-38 steadies. The gun sight centers, and the miracle of counter-rotating propellers is that the nose doesn't drift. Not a millimeter. Jack squeezes the triggers. This time, the guns speak only for a moment. Just a swift, decisive burst. The rounds stitch across the 190's tail and into the engine cowling. Smoke pours instantly from the ruptured machine. Flames lick along the fuselage. The German pilot bails out, a dark figure tumbling into the cold April air as his aircraft spirals into a smoking trail. Jack exhales. Long, slow, the kind of exhale that fogs the inside of his mask for a moment before clearing. His pulse still hammers against his ribs. His gloved fingers tremble. Red leader, red 2. I'm clear. His voice sounds older than it did 5 minutes ago. High above, Reynolds replies, Copy that. Regroup at Angels 25. Bombers are still inbound. Jack eases the throttles back. The Lightning climbs smoothly, its twin booms slicing the sky as though none of this ever happened, as though it wasn't pushed beyond every design limit an aircraft should have. But it did. It survived. And so did he, because one engineer dared to draw 2 arrows spinning in opposite directions. Jack leans back, catching his breath as the cold wind hums around the canopy. Kelly Johnson? He mutters quietly. Whoever you are? Thanks. Jack climbs steadily back toward 25,000 feet. The Lightning purring now instead of roaring. The air grows thinner, colder. His breath crackles in the oxygen mask. The horizon levels out. The clouds flatten beneath him like a white marble floor. Red flight forms up again, 4 gleaming silver predators against a sky, washed clean by battle. Reynolds eases in on Jack's right wing, giving a small thumbs up through the canopy. Jack returns it, though the shake in his hand betrays just how close the fight had gotten. The bombers are still inbound. B, 17 seconds, high and slow. Their formation solid, their exhaust lines thick and smeared by altitude. Somewhere behind them, navigators mark flak zones. Waist gunners shift nervously behind their Brownings. Pilots stare ahead into hostile country. They're coming to hit a Luftwaffe airfield. Without escorts, they'd never make it back to England. That's why the Lightning exists. To get them home, Jack steals a glance at his own aircraft. The broad wings, the twin booms, the shark-like central pod. He thinks of the way it handled the dive, the spiral, the cloud break. He thinks of torque, how he never once had to fight it, even with both throttle levers firewalled. And he wonders again about the man who gave him that gift. Kelly Johnson leans over a stripped-down prototype, listening as a test pilot describes the first high-speed run. The hangar is echoing with the idle rumble of engines. Mechanics wipe grease from their hands like surgeons, stepping away from an operating table. Clean, the pilot says. Too clean. Almost. Feels like she wants to go faster than I do. Kelly smirks. She will. The test pilot points toward the engines. But that opposite spin idea? It's unnatural. Takes getting used to. Do you want natural? Kelly asks, scribbling notes. Or, do you want fastest? Silence. Then a laugh. Fastest. Every time. Kelly nods. Then build me another left-hand engine. Word spreads fast through Lockheed. Mechanics gather whenever the Lightning is wheeled out. Ground crew whisper that the props turn the wrong way. That no twin-engine plane is supposed to do that. That it's a gamble, but every flight proves the same thing. The torque is gone, removed, neutralized. It is a monster. Yes, but a tame one. The Air Corps officers visiting the factory scribble in their quarters' own notebooks. Exceptional climb characteristics. Minimal correction at max throttle. Pilot workload significantly reduced. One of them jokes, feels like cheating in a dive. The nickname starts quietly, inside the test program. The Lightning. Because when it dives, it looks like a silver bolt splitting the sky. Now, back over France, Jack flies with that name painted proudly on his nose. From his altitude, he can see the smoke columns from his fallen enemies still rising from the farmlands below. 2 kills today. Maybe more once intel confirms. But he isn't thinking about numbers. He's thinking about how he survived. Reynolds' voice cuts into his headset again. Red flight. Eyes up. We've got stragglers coming in from the northeast. Jack cranes his neck. There, tiny growing specks. More fighters. But this time, he doesn't feel the cold pit of dread in his gut. He feels steady, grounded, even at 25,000 feet, because he knows what his aircraft can do. He knows what it did just minutes ago. He knows that, as long as he respects it and listens to it, the lightning won't betray him. The new enemy formation approaches from higher altitude, banking in slow, cautious arcs. They've seen the smoke trails. They know the Americans aren't running. Reynolds levels his wings. Red flight. Tighten up. Let's show them what Lockheed's miracle can do. Jack flexes his gloved fingers around the yoke. The lightning hums, almost eager. Somewhere far away, Kelly Johnson is probably asleep, unaware that his odd little engineering gamble is now carrying men through hell and back. But here, over enemy territory, Jack Mercer understands the truth. This plane is more than metal and fuel, more than guns and engines. It is the product of one man's refusal to accept physics as a prison. And the enemy is about to see exactly what that means. The incoming German formation fans out as it approaches, dark silhouettes glinting in the stark northern sunlight. They're higher, always a problem. Altitude is life in air combat. Altitude is speed, energy, initiative. But Jack Mercer doesn't flinch. Neither does anyone in red flight. They've got the one fighter in the 8th Air Force that can meet a diving attack with its own teeth bared. Red flight, stay tight. Split. Climbing into enemy fighters usually courts disaster. But the lightning isn't usual. Its twin Allisons take the throttle like a dare. Jack pushes his levers forward. Both engines roar in perfect mirrored harmony. Torque stays deadened, cancelled out by those counter-rotating props just like they did in Kelly Johnson's drafting room. The Germans commit. 8 fighters, mostly 190 seconds, but a few 109 seconds, diving in from the high sun. From below, Jack sees their wings flicker as they open fire. The sky fills with streaking tracers, hot lines ripping the air downward. Break! Reynolds shouts. Red flight snaps apart like a detonating starburst. But the lightning doesn't wobble, doesn't kick sideways, doesn't demand the rudder wrestling match that other fighters choke on when trying to break formation under power. Jack rolls right, clean and hard. His lightning answers instantly. The canopy flashes orange as enemy fire zips past, but he's already clear of the kill zone. A pair of 109 seconds dive through where he'd been a second earlier, trying to recover for another pass. Jack watches them fight their torque, noses twitching, tails swaying as the pilots stomp on, pedals to stabilize their dives. Those aircraft were built for beautiful, high-speed slashes, but only if flown perfectly. Jack's lightning doesn't need perfect. It gives him stability where theirs strips it away. He pulls into a shallow climb. Then, there, a single 190, overshooting the engagement, slinging past in too steep a dive. Jack angles toward him. At 400 miles per hour, most fighters lose precision. Ailerons stiffen, nose wanders, torque tears at the wings. But the Lightning's counter-rotating props anchor the nose straight ahead, letting Jack place the gun sight exactly where it needs to be. He leads the German by a hair, breath steady, crosshairs drifting. Now, he fires. The Lightning's centerline guns erupt, the recoil shivering through the nose. A single stream of tracer tears into the 190's wing root. Black smoke pours out instantly. The German snaps into a shallow roll, trailing fire. Splash 1. Jack radios, though he barely hears himself, because now the sky becomes a brawl. 109 seconds latch onto Reynolds' tail. Jack sees it from above. A dangerous angle, one he can't ignore. He turns. Hard. So hard the seat tries to swallow him. At this throttle setting, any other fighter at this angle would be twisting uncontrollably, under its own torque. Bleeding energy, becoming a perfect target, not the lightning. The twin props claw the air in opposite spirals, neutralizing the roll that should accompany such a brutal maneuver. Jack aligns on the pair, chasing his leader. "Red leader, break left," Jack calls. Reynolds kicks his lightning out of the line of fire just as Jack opens up. His rounds rake across the trailing 109, shattering the canopy. The pilot slumps. The aircraft tumbles. The second, 109, panics. Pulls too hard. Torque bites, and it flicks out of the turn violently. A fatal stall. It drops like a brick, disappearing into cloud cover. Reynolds exhales over the radio. "Good God, Red 2. I owe you a case of whiskey." Jack barely smiles. His eyes are scanning again, searching for more threats. Because the fight isn't done. Not yet. A lone 190 streaks upward, trying to escape. Jack sees the pilot's intention instantly. The German wants altitude back, wants safety. Jack pushes his throttles forward to pursue. And here, the lightning pulls its final, quiet miracle of the encounter. It climbs in perfect balance. No torque roll, no rudder correction. Just pure, relentless ascent. The German's 190 can't match it. Jack reels him in slowly, methodically. The gap closes. The gun sight steadies. The moment stretches taut, then breaks. A short burst. A flash of sparks. Engine fire. A canopy jettisoning as the German climbs out into the desolate, freezing void. Jack doesn't watch the fighter fall. He can't. He's already scanning for more threats. But there are none. Silence finally settles back over the sky. The Luftwaffe has broken away. The bombers are safe. Red Flight still flies. And the lightning? It has just proven, once again, that it is unlike anything else in the war-torn skies of Europe. A fighter born from an engineer's stubborn idea. A pair of backwards propellers that made the impossible possible. The sky is finally still. No tracers. No spiraling plumes of smoke. No sudden streaks of gray-winged predators knifing down from the sun. Just the steady thrum of 4 surviving lightnings gliding above France, scarred, scraped, low on ammo, but alive. Jack Mercer settles back in his seat, shoulders sinking as the adrenaline begins to ebb. His breath fogs the inside of the mask in slow, exhausted bursts. The lightning hums like a tired but faithful warhorse returning from a brutal charge. Reynolds' voice cuts softly through the headset. "Red Flight, form on me. We'll shepherd the heavies across the channel." Jack checks his gauges. Fuel low but manageable. Hydraulics holding. Oil temps normal despite the abuse. The twin Allisons tick steadily at reduced throttle, their mirrored vibrations smooth and reassuring. Below, the bomber formation drifts into view. Dozens of B-17 seconds lumber along, black flak scars pocking their silver skins. A few have feathered props. One trails smoke. Crews inside them wave when they spot the lightnings, dropping into escort position, because they all know. Without fighters, especially these fighters, today would have been a massacre. Jack steadies on the bomber's left flank, scanning the empty sky with weary eyes. He can feel the aftershocks of the fight still echoing through his muscles. His hands tremble slightly on the yoke. The cold bites through his gloves again, now that the battle's heat has faded. But underneath all that, something else settles in. A realization. A truth he hadn't fully grasped before today. This airplane shouldn't work. On paper, it's too radical, too strange, too wrong. Twin booms instead of a single fuselage. Engines that spin in opposite directions. A shape that looks more like a futuristic comic book sketch than a product of American industry. And yet here, he is alive because of it. Jack glances out toward the silver arcs of his propellers, spinning in perfect mirrored motion. Those broken props. The joke from training. The thing ground crews teased about. The quirk pilots mentioned in passing. They saved him. More than once. That German, who overshot him, wouldn't have overshot a Mustang. That cloud spiral would have killed a Thunderbolt. That high-speed dive would have twisted a single-engine fighter into a deadly roll. But the lightning? It shrugged off everything physics threw at it. And now, with the channel glittering ahead, like a sheet of hammered steel, Jack sees just how far that one engineer's gamble reached. Not just into the drafting room, not just into Air Corps specifications or test flights, but into the sky above Europe, into the lives of every bomber crew now safe. Because Red Flight still flies. They cross the French coastline, cliffs sliding away beneath them as the water opens into a cold, rippling expanse. England is still a distant smudge on the horizon, but the relief of home stretches ahead. With every mile, the radio crackles occasionally with quiet check-ins. A few jokes, a few weary sighs, the soft, private noises of pilots who just survived something violent and intimate. Jack finally speaks. "You guys ever think about the man who built these things?" A moment of silence. Then Reynolds answers. "Every damn time, she saves my hide." The others chuckle weakly. Jack looks again. At the props, spinning out there, like twin silver halos. Kelly Johnson. He doesn't know the name well yet. Not really. Nobody back home does either. Not yet. The skunk works haven't become legend. Lockheed's Miracle Man is still mostly an anonymous engineer with a penchant for innovation and impossible ideas. But up here, among pilots, heroes don't need medals. They need machines that work, and Kelly built one that works better than anything else in the sky. England's coastline finally appears, green, damp, familiar. As they descend through scattered clouds, Jack catches sight of their home field. Runways glisten from a recent rain. Trucks and crew scramble as the escort flights return one by one. Jack lowers his gear. The Lightning shudders softly as the wheels lock. He eases her down. Touchdown is smooth, shockingly smooth, after the chaos of the past hour. On the rollout, the engines idle quietly. Opposite rotations still visible in the blur of the blades. As the Lightning slows, the humming fades into a steady mechanical sigh. He taxis past ground crew, who wave energetically at the sight of returning fighters. Some stare at the bullet holes in his left. Boom. Others point at the scorch marks on the nose. Jack lifts his mask and breathes real air for the first time in hours. It tastes like oil, mud, and home. As he climbs down, his knees nearly buckle from fatigue. A mechanic rushes over, hands out, grinning. "Hell of a run, Lieutenant." "Heard. You bagged 3." Jack shakes his head slowly. "She did," he says, patting the nose of the Lightning. "I just held on." The mechanic laughs, but Jack doesn't. He means it. Every word. Because today, the Lightning wasn't just fast, wasn't just powerful, wasn't just lethal. It was loyal, predictable, forgiving where other machines were fatal. All because of one impossible idea. Propellers that shouldn't have worked, but did. The sun is low when the debriefing finally ends. Maps clutter the table. Grease pencil circles mark enemy approaches. Cigarette smoke hangs like fog in the room. Jack sits quietly while the intelligence officer tallies claims, tracing each pilot's account with quick, clinical precision. 3 confirmed for Jack. 1 probable. 1 damaged. Reynolds claps him on the back. Not bad for a day's work, read 2. Jack nods numbly. The room is warm, too warm, after the freezer bite of high altitude. His ears still ring faintly, either from gunfire or adrenaline. The edges of the world feel soft, as if reality hasn't fully settled back into place since the fight. All right, men, the intel officer says, closing his notebook. Good work today. The bombers made it back with minimal losses. Dismissed. Chairs scrape. Boots thud. Someone laughs weakly. Someone else mutters about needing a drink large enough to drown in. But Jack lingers. Not out of pride. Not out of shock. He's thinking, turning the day over in his mind. Not the kills. Not the terror. Not the near-death spirals. The machine. The lightning. The thing that shouldn't have been possible. Outside, dusk settles over the dispersal area. Mechanics swarm his aircraft, flashlights sweeping across its skin like fireflies. One taps a bullet, embedded deep in the metal with a screwdriver. Another examines a torn flap. A third whistles at the blackened scorch marks near the cannon port. Jack approaches quietly. Be gentle with her, he says. She did more flying than I did today. A grinning crewman wipes his hands on a rag. Lieutenant, she'll be ready before you get a good night's sleep. Jack lays his palm on the cool metal of the nose. The aircraft seems to hum under his touch, even with the engines silent, like a living creature still catching its breath. The twin props rest motionless now, but he can still see them spinning in memory. Opposite arcs slicing the sky, balancing forces that should have broken him in half. Never thought I'd be grateful for a backwards propeller, he murmurs. A young mechanic snorts. Yeah, we hear that a lot. Inside the operations tent, a colonel studies reports stacked higher than his coffee mug. He flips through page after page, kill claims, mechanical notes, bomber crew debriefs. He pauses at one line in particular, P-38 escort effectiveness. Exceptional. Enemy dive attacks thwarted. Aircraft stability noted at extreme speeds. He leans back, rubbing his temples. Damn miracle plane, he mutters. It won't stay a secret for long. Word is already spreading across the 8th Air Force. Air crews talk. Pilots listen. Stories travel. Stories about a fighter that dives faster than physics says it should. A fighter that claws upward like a double-engined demon. A fighter that stays balanced when every other machine buckles under its own torque. The British will soon remark that the P-38 climbs like a homesick angel. Bomber crews will cheer whenever they see its twin booms sliding into escort position. Luftwaffe pilots will warn each other, don't follow a lightning through a dive. It will kill you. And all of this, every scrap of awe and fear, traces back to one unorthodox idea in a quiet Lockheed office. 2 arrows on a page, 2 propellers spinning in opposite worlds, a design no one else dared to try. Kelly. Johnson took a gamble. The war turned it into a legend. Jack stays with the aircraft long after the mechanics drift away. The base grows quiet. Only wind and the distant rumble of another flight returning break the stillness. He climbs once more onto the wing, sits beside the canopy, and lets the cold air clear the last of the day's adrenaline from his blood. He can see the fight again, the 450 miles per hour's dive, the spiral through cloud. the perfect stability in moments when he should have died. And for the first time, the full weight of it hits him. Not fear, not triumph, gratitude for the engineers, for the ground crew, for this strange, beautiful machine that carried him through fire and brought him home whole. A shadow passes across the runway as the last bomber glides to a halt. Jack watches it taxi, riddled with holes, yet still intact. Its crew will walk away tonight. Sleep tonight? Write letters home tonight? Because red flight shielded them. Because the lightning could do what nothing else could. Jack stands, pats the canopy frame one last time, and whispers, "See you tomorrow, girl." He steps down, boots crunching on damp concrete, and walks toward the barracks beneath a sky gone dark and quiet. Only the faintest glimmer of starlight reflects off the twin booms behind him, a final flash of silver in the night. A reminder of the 450 miles per hour's monster that saved his life. A reminder of the engineer who refused to accept the ordinary. A reminder of the machine that changed the war.